Breaking news out of Washington, Robert Mueller will testify about the Russia investigation on Capitol Hill next month. In just a few weeks, we're told he accepted a subpoena and will speak in an open session on July 17th. This according to House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler and House Intelligence Committee Chair Adam Schiff. So what does this mean for the president? Joining me now, former CIA analyst and host of the Buck Sexton Show. It's a podcast. He is Buck Sexton. Welcome back.
Good to see you, Kennedy.
What does his appearance say to you, Buck?
Well, it means that this whole thing isn't an entire joke. I mean, this was ridiculous that they were pulling people that have already testified time and time again. You know, they're bringing Hope Hicks down for testimony. They're bringing people down that we've seen for years to go over the same thing. Donald Trump Jr., you're not going to have the guy who was in charge of the whole investigation into Russia collusion and possible obstruction for 2 years. This was laughable. That this was even put out there for a little bit as a possibility just goes to show you how incredibly politicized this is. Because here's the deal, Kennedy. I think this isn't going to be very good for Democrats. Usually anything Mueller report related, Russia related, obstruction related, much more so now, is a big win for Democrats in the news cycle. But Mueller's going to have to answer some questions like, hey, did you care at all about the origins of this investigation? Why does the dossier basically not appear anywhere in your hundreds of pages of writing, a lot of it editorializing? And those are going to be answers that people need to hear, because I don't think Mueller's got good ones.
Well, he's going to rely on the report, as he told us when he gave his press conference. So he called a press conference. Obviously, you remember when Congress was not in session, so he wouldn't really be held to task. He didn't take any questions from the press, dropped a few bombs about the president and possible obstruction of justice, and then waddled away. But, you know, there was some disparity between what he said about the DOJ precedent for charging a sitting president or indicting a sitting president and what Bill Barr said that he asked Mueller explicitly. And so there is a disparity there in their two statements. So who is going to seek reconciliation on those statements?
Well, that's what we need to find out, because someone, at least there was a miscommunication, if not someone misrepresented what's a critical conversation, which is, did you not make the decision for Mueller because you thought there was no circumstance under which you could make the decision, or was that a factor among many factors? Because that seemed to be Barr's interpretation of this early on. At least that's what he was telling people. And, you know, look, these are two men that people always talk about how Mueller is so respected. You hear that a lot in the media. Barr is incredibly well respected. He was actually part of the DOJ Lawyer of Lawyers unit. I mean, he's a guy that goes back in this town a long time, including being the Attorney General of the Bush administration. And the thought that he would have just lied for no reason doesn't wash. So Mueller's got some answering to do.
He does. And hopefully people like Jim Jordan will put his feet to the fire a little bit so we can get some actual answers.
He may try to dodge a lot, Kennedy, but remember when our now not so sanctified James Comey kept saying, I don't recall, I don't remember, I don't know. It's like, what exactly would you say you do know, Jimmy? That was the question that people wanted to ask him.
I'm a people person. All right, so let's move on to mental retardation. Iran's war of words with the president today officially devolving into schoolyard taunts after the White House this week dialed up the pressure on them with a new round of sanctions. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani called the sanctions idiotic and even said that the White House is, quote, afflicted by mental retardation. President Trump didn't take the words lying down, tweeting, quote, Iran's very ignorant and insulting statement put out today only shows that they do not understand reality. Any attack by Iran on anything American will be met with great and overwhelming force. John Bolton wrote that, you know. In some areas, overwhelming will mean obliteration. No more John Kerry and Obama. The president didn't specify what obliteration actually means, but sounds pretty heavy duty. So who's going to blink first? All right, Buck. So let's talk a little bit about this, because I see John Bolton's sticky fingerprints all over that tweet.
Well, I would just say I'm disappointed with the president, because this is a guy who's the king of the insults. He doesn't have a great name for the Muellers yet. He doesn't have anything for Khomeini, and that needs to change.
He called him Khomeini.
Yeah, well, yeah.
To sort of jostle those angry mid-'80s memories of
this is the Tehran equivalent of this is potato, I guess, to Trump. The point here is that he needs a good name.
Potato has an E at the end of it.
He needs a name for the mullahs to put them in their place a little bit. I mean, he came up with Rocket Man out of nowhere. So on the actual substance here, This was until Obama came along and his people were desperate to come up with some way for there to be a foreign policy legacy that wasn't just failure, which is what they had in Syria, in Iraq, in Libya, name a country that matters, in Afghanistan. To have some legacy, they said, okay, we're going to get this Iran deal. And they showed up at the car dealership, so to speak, and said, I'm not leaving the lot without a car. That's not how you negotiate. The pressure that was put on the Iranians was to get them to make concessions that they did not want to make, which is not what happened. As we can see, they're already threatening to go to 20% and then very quickly after that, 90% enriched uranium.
It's amazing how quickly they can just kickstart the whole process and enrich weapons-grade uranium in a matter of weeks. It's really unbelievable. But you're right. There was no sense that the Obama administration was confident enough to walk away from the deal, that they wanted it so badly. They wanted it so much.
Right. Well, I mean, is time on our side or on their side? And I think under the Obama approach, it was, we need a deal before Obama's out of office. Right now, Trump is early on. I think Trump's planning on another 4 years, not to get too far ahead of myself. And he's figuring, look, the Iranian economy is in free fall right now. Bolton has said the door is open for them. I think that is true. It's a door that would be painful for the regime to walk through. It'd be great for the Iranian people to get that economy back up and running. But we can wait them out. And yes, if they do things that are aggressive.
That's the thing that breaks my heart, is people who really need it, whether it's Venezuela, North Korea, or Iran, are the last people to get it. And you see 3 places where we have sanctions, and these authoritarian a-holes are always able to enrich themselves and their cronies and buy a bunch of weapons and control the military, while the lowly people just suffer and die.
Yeah, sanctions don't have a great history of success. I'm not saying it never has any purpose, but yeah, have the Russians totally capitulated because of all the sanctions on them for their meddling? I don't think so. So, you know, and never mind Iraq, we could do this all day.
Yes.
Is it going to work in this case? I don't know.
I would love for every foreign policy story to end like Rocky IV. Unfortunately, that is a fairy tale.
I think every story should end like Rocky IV.
From your lips to God's sweet ears. Buck Sexton, thank you so much.
Good to see you.
You too.